And good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 17th of November. Boy, what a brisk, frisk morning. Frisk? Can it be a frisk morning? There was a horse on the
Hey,
property once
Jody,
called
it's
Frisky.
Veronica
And,
from Prairie Products. How are you
oh,
today?
I have to mute
Hey,
Veronica
you
here.
know what? We
She
are,
is
but
she is talking to someone, a possible guest that we're going to have on. But what a morning that we had here, and it's exciting. Today, we are going to talk about several different things, and we may have a guest on here with us yet in just a little while. But it is Chat Canna. It is Chat Canna for a Tuesday. And let's see here. We got to get the right. There we go. It even looks pretty on the screen. So we are getting just great feedback from the show that we did on Thursday, and we want to thank all of the people that watched it. It was, of course, Shauna Reitmeyer from the Northwest Mental Health Center, and we hope that that you will. I think that we're ready to grab add in the stream. Are you there? There she is. And now I have to unmute her because you didn't mute yourself. There we go. Now we are in control. Do we have news? Is it a thumb up or a thumb sideways?
I think it's a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
It's a
all right.
sideways right now because we're just going to see if we can link in. So,
alrighty, I was just talking about how great it was and the great feedback we were getting from Thursday's show with Shauna Reitmeyer, and what an effective speaker that she is to put words together that really can move people. And I thought the two of you just really, there was just this connection there. You had never met each other, didn't know about each other before, and somehow, it was just really neat that you had this connection. And of course, talking about the mental health of people in agriculture and things to watch for, and of course that there are resources. You don't have to wait till it's really, really bad to get out there. And now we have a special guest. Let's just bring him right in here, and I will let you make the introductions. Veronica Michael.
hello, Doug Goring. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So we are so fortunate to have the North Dakota Ag Commissioner with us. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So I don't know if you have met my co-host before, John Reitmeyer from Fisher.
I have not. Nice to meet you, John.
Greetings. Thank you.
So John is a fourth generation farmer, and we grew up probably, our towns are only like 20 minutes away. I'm from Climax, Minnesota. John's from the Fisher area. So, but we actually got connected through one of the Northern Crops Institute's events, wasn't it, John?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We ended up on the same round table, and we realized that we were kind of both. We were taking over the round table is what we were doing. You know how that can go sometimes, because a lot of the hemp farmers kind of sit back and they're kind of going, yep. And Veronica and I were just talking. So it was great. It was great.
It was great. John and his family chose to invest in some testing. Well, why don't you talk about it, John? Because I feel like it's awesome what you have to do.
Well, we didn't want to just jump in both feet first, as my family's really conservative. And so I and another partner kind of jumped in really, really carefully. We wanted to get into research and development and find out how this hemp stuff might grow in the Red River Valley and how the soils would affect its growth and everything. So we started off really slow. And of course, with the trauma that we had, we didn't get it harvested before that 8 inches of rain and the snowstorm last fall. We had only got about 100 plants in. So actually, it was really good that we did what we did. And so we're just kind of staying in research and development. We've bought another place to have some 6 acres now, maybe next year. And we're just kind of slowly rolling out what we do, but all the time trying to do research and development. We have an actual testing machine here, different than so many farmers. So we're taking in samples from anybody that wants to send them to us and, trying to see where people are and what's happening. And just trying to understand. And we believe, especially as Minnesota is connected to the North Dakota plain, that the idea of the growing hemp where every plant is named and numbered and you love them and you kiss them goodnight is probably not the way we're going to raise hemp here in this area. We, the Adams family, of course, up in the Grand Forks, Minnesota area, he's combining it across 80 acres. And we believe that has to be the way that, and talking to my family that's out there in the fields, John, show us that we can do 40 or 50 acres right out the gate. So that's where all of our direction is how can we turn this into a product that, the machines go in the field and it goes in the truck and it goes to the dryer or the grain bin with not a lot of touchy-feely handling, because that's what North Dakota and the surrounding area needs to make this a viable crop that'll fit into the rotation and just become the next soybean or rapeseed or whatever the next product should be.
Yeah, you have to eliminate some of that labor aspect because that just increases the cost. Plus, when you start working at this from an FDA and a USDA point of view, or the bureaucracy in general, the more times that you're handling it, the more control points you have, the more risk of contamination, the more risk of a food safety issue, or to any degree, unless you're going to use this just strictly for fiber. There are issues that we have to contend with every day in our business and in agriculture. So the same things that you just described, John, are exactly how you try to move down that path to eliminate some of that risk and certainly put a high quality product in front of the consumer. I wanted to ask you, John, you said you're testing your own stuff. You're doing the research. I love it because these are things that we've been encouraging and talking to people about. Are you doing it at the different growth stages to monitor and doing it with different varieties? Because we found these plants have a personality depending on the year that they're growing in, depending on the variety you're dealing with, depending on the growth stages, depending on whether it's grain, fiber, or for CBD extract. You're going to have some different issues. And especially if you're doing CBD, we've found it would be more in line to continue to monitor what the plant development is, what your THC levels are doing, and then harvest at the proper time instead of thinking, let's harvest when we want to. We need to harvest when the plant's telling us to.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, this year, everything that we grew, we destroyed. That we did it on purpose. We pushed every plant to over the THC level because we were able to test literally every day or every couple of days.
Sure.
And that's all that we were doing. We have a really great relationship with the folks in Minnesota here. And so they knew exactly what we were doing. And then as each plant, we have all these records and we did 6 varieties this year. We tried to do 7. We planted a pound of X59, kind of the original industrial tall shoots like I have behind me here. And something went wrong. We got terrible germination. The few that did grow did not do well in my former pig pen 50 years ago soil here. It was a great experiment, but boy, had that been a field, it would have been a disaster. And we don't know yet what went wrong. We're going to try some more next year. If it was just, like we all talk about, it's a wild, wild west. Did the guy that sent it to us just not care and just went and got a pound of seed from the cutoff bin? We don't know, but certainly it was a bad experiment for us because we wanted to do some industrial. We wanted to get, a couple of cubic yards of stock to play with the fiber and stuff. That was our goal with that. And we didn't get to go down that path this year.
Well, and that's another thing that you mentioned. It's industrial hemp is kind of indeterminate in a sense, in that when you're growing it for seed, you're going to have in that head, you're going to have at least half of it or a third of it's going to be mature seed. You're going to have some on the immature side that even if you dry it down, it goes through the process, it's probably going to be viable seed. And then you're going to have a portion anywhere from 10 to 20% that's just so immature that there's no real value there. So you almost need to have a gravity table to be sorting off the seed to make sure if you're going to be a certified seed grower, or at least you're going to be managing it, harvesting it at the proper time to keep your germination levels up. Germ is pretty poor on industrial hemp.
Yeah.
And part of it's just simply because the way it's grown, how it has to be grown. If you left it stand out there till everything was matured, you'd lose the first part of the plant and production. And that's just not a good thing. So maybe over time, maybe some breeding techniques, maybe some different systems and practices, we might actually be able to create a more viable seed plant. But it's difficult and it's a challenge, and my hat's off to those that are making the effort.
Well, and that's why our commitment is to be really small and really, get a handle and a feel for this. There's a plaque on the wall that all of my family has from my grandfather. He got an award from American Crystal Sugar for his significant contribution to sugar beets, because he had the highest tonnage on a field larger than 3 acres, and it was 4 tons per acre. So I mean, think where that's come from the early 1900s to now. And that's why, and we think that we're going to go out the first year and have a bumper hemp crop, when we haven't done anything for 80 years in that area. Baby steps, we just got to take baby steps and get learning and everything. And that's why it's really neat. North Dakota seems to have this really kind of good push and commitment to helping the hemp farmers and everything. And talking to you, it's really comfortable that you see this as something that's going to move forward.
Well, as a farmer and seeing a lot of different aspects of agriculture, and then at the onset of this, I mean, we've had a law in the book since 1997 in North Dakota to support the cultivation and production of hemp. Well, until the 2014 Farm Bill, we weren't able to do anything, and we immediately jumped on it. And it is a growing learning phase. And the new one that came in was the 2018 Farm Bill, when they threw CBD extract in there, which gave us an opportunity to go down that road. So we had to hurry up and learn as much as we could about that. And we're still learning. It just really doesn't matter about hemp in general. There's a lot of things to learn. We still tell people, just like producing spring wheat on the prairies or corn in different parts of the state, your soil has a different personality, the microclimate that you're growing in. I mean, we have about 13 microclimates in North Dakota. So those regions are going to express themselves differently in every plant. Your soils are different. The varieties you choose are going to be different. We've seen people put 2 or 3 varieties in and have completely different types of plants and responses. And then again, the thing we've been pushing USDA for is, please accept the fact that we should have different protocols in place, because grain and fiber are different from CBD extract. And there's different ways to manage them. There's different ways to regulate them. There's different ways to work with producers to get to a good end result and not waste resources, not beat the heck out of this program, and really help the industry as a whole. But it helps us. And a lot of what we shared with USDA, they finally came back in their last go around here when we submitted our plan and said, okay, provide us some data and information that supports what you want to do or what you want to have in the final interim rule. And we started pulling that data. We're sending it in after 5 years. We're hopeful that they're finally going to look at some of this and see what we're talking about. I will tell you, 1 year of them running a program, they have started to recognize that some of what we were saying was absolutely true. I said, you can't run a program like this. It is so costly, and the burden can't be bore just on the producer, and it can't be bore on the state. We can share in this going forward, but we need to eliminate some costs, and there's sampling protocols that can go in place that are going to work much better. It's going to provide better oversight, better accountability. Just give us that latitude instead of having something so prescriptive that it has a disastrous effect in the end and just costs a lot of people headaches, heartaches, and money. So I'm excited as we get into this last round. They've been kind of encouraging us, or trying to encourage us, that we, we're really looking at what you've sent to us, and we think that may work. But we got to find some level of comfort in this, and there's a lot of pay grades, pay levels in here that people have to see it and decide whether that's really what we should be doing. So we'll see.
What do you think might be one of the biggest changes that happens after the USDA rule?
Oh, the problem is I can only see what I really want. But trying to take what they want and fit it into our model, I got to tell you, Veronica, I'm frustrated to the nth degree. I mean, we run 120 different programs here at the department. We are regulators for the most part. About 90% of what we do is regulate different aspects of agriculture. So we understand sampling protocols. We understand how to sample a field. We understand what we should be looking for. We understand the type of labs we need to be working with. I mean, that was the other thing that we had a lot of issues with, is because you can sample something, there may be a flaw in what you did, how you collected. That can happen. It is rare, but we know that anomalies happen. So if you're going to a DA certified lab, they immediately, if you have a hot sample, you're done.
Yeah.
My God, they don't even give you time to respond, to show a little grace and mercy and try to investigate what's going on. I mean, when we have a problem out there, I will tell you, because I took an oath of office, we'll deal with it. But sometimes you have to let us investigate and get to the bottom of it to figure out, was there a mistake in how sampling took place? Did we get this from some odd plant? I mean, is there a section of the field that we're looking at that maybe we have to deal with separately? How was sampling done overall? Was it a varietal thing? There's all kinds of things that you have to look at instead of just saying, nope, off with the head. And that's the problem. That's why we don't want to use a DA certified lab. We will live up and we will have the integrity in our program to withstand scrutiny. But when you have somebody else that's already sitting on the sidelines, and the minute you make a mistake, I mean, they take you off at the knees. Well, there's a lot of things here that we need to sort through before we just say, nope, we're done. And that's one of the things. The other thing I'm hoping for is that we have a change in the protocols. Again, I mentioned grain and fiber versus CBD. We need to look at those a little different. We gave them a model and said, this is how we would approach it. It would be a little more rigorous on the CBD side and a lot less on the grain and fiber, because rarely do we find any problems there. As long as we know what the varieties are, as long as we know the soils that they're growing in, we're going to continue to monitor them. We're going to continue to go through. We don't need that 15-day harvest period. We want to look at things maybe during the summer and the mid-growing season and look at things towards the end. But it all depends, again, on the variety. It depends on the soil, the environment. If it's being grown in a greenhouse, is it being grown outside? There's all kinds of factors there that have to be considered. And we see that in agriculture all the time. So why discard what we know, how we do it already, and poo-poo it and say, no, we want to do it this way? They are a lot more open to that. So I'm hoping, Veronica, that we see a new rule that is fashioned to be a little more friendly to how we are going to implement and regulate and provide oversight within the industry.
That's fantastic. Well, I have to commend you and your office, John, everyone that works at Hemp. I mean, I know you're hustling. The way the law was written, it's obvious to tell that the restrictions are putting so many man hours out there, people hours.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the work you're doing, but it is a hustle to get to every corner of the state. And I can't imagine what that flow chart looks like.
Well, and I got to tell you, maybe we jumped the gun, but when the 2018 Farm Bill was signed, written into law, I was actually in DC for that signing. Oh. And excited about what was in there. So we came home, we drew up our plan. We saw the law for what it was. And boy, did we miss the mark, because when the rule came out, it was like, whoa. The laws that we actually suggested were changed in statute in North Dakota so that we can run and operate. We thought this is going to be less intrusive, less expensive, and it actually ended up the opposite way. So we were scrambling for resources after we had already passed the statute. The rule came out. we operate for 2 years like this. This has been the challenge now. So going forward, there's some things we need to look at, want to look at. I know what the measure of uncertainty with the labs, that can be prescribed within a lab itself, which causes some concern on our part. So there might need to be some things that need to be adjusted there. I can live with that to a degree, but we also need to look at the integrity of the labs that we wish to choose, as long as they're accredited and certified, and we have a comfort level with them that we've taken known product and it's produced exactly the same sample, same results after being tested that we're aware of. Those are the types of things that we want to work through and put a good program in place so that it helps the producers, it helps the industry move forward versus penalizing it and costing more money. Going forward, I will say that this next legislative session, we're probably going to have to tweak it a little bit. We're seeing that the program that has been put out there is probably, that framework is probably what we're going to have to work within. So we may have to ask the legislature for a little more money to run the program. And we may have to ask growers to pay a little bit more because of the travel, the operations that are involved, the testing. We want to encourage more testing. I think what John mentioned, that, I mean, spot on. Do more testing yourself. Try to figure out where your crop is at so that you can harvest it at a timely manner without having something that is suspect or out of compliance.
I took a call last week now, a gentleman out in the western part of your state. He grew 3 varieties, and he fell into exactly what you said. You know, they came and tested, and they came and wiped out 2 of his 3 varieties. And now he's sending me the 3rd one just to be testing to see to see if his numbers are what somebody else gets. But, you know, he's just a small hemp farmer and just first year doing it. And 2/3 of his work was just wiped out right in front of him without any consideration to, is there some other way that we can use this? Or
that's the thing that we have been just racking our brain and trying to, I mean, the law is it's very plainly spoken when it says if something is hot, it needs to be destroyed. And I've tried to find ways to work around that, work through that. It's sad because people are paying a lot of money, especially if they're buying it by the plant.
yeah.
That is costly, or they're buying expensive seed for CBD extract. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and I don't want to do it.
Oh, I understand. We have to follow the laws. I have no issue with that. But, you know, give me a plant with my tester, and then let me show you up here, and then let me show you around here, and then let me show you down here, and then tell me what the actual percentage of THC is in that plant. Yeah, because it's just so variable, and then you can go 3 plants over and do the same thing, and it's going to be different. So it's, you know, it's almost the luck of where the gentleman or lady happened to walk that day.
And that's the other thing. We need to get engaged again with the industry and show them what the sampling protocols are, what the procedures are, so that everybody's doing the same thing. One of the things we ran into this year was how someone actually took a sample, and they did test, and their test came in right at the level, but they were testing at the bottom of the plant and not at the top.
Right.
And we've talked about some different things that we want to do, and the size. You know, there's so many different, I won't call them standards, but there's different practices out there. Some are taking 2 inches, some are taking 8 inches, some are taking it from the top of the plant, some are taking it from the middle, the bottom, some are only taking buds, some are, you know, it's like, wait a minute. We've got to come up with some type of sampling protocols and practice in place so that everybody's doing the same thing, so we don't have these errors that exist when we are doing sampling. Because it's just heartbreaking when you have to tell someone they are you're not just a little bit out of compliance, you're a lot out of compliance. And they'll say, well, we took the same test. Why is ours fine? And then you start comparing notes and you find out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you mentioned that about sampling, because having some kind of uniformity, it's so strange that we're in this situation. I think the other thing that has been interesting is to see the variance in labs. For us,
Yes.
we made sure to send samples, the same sample out to a few labs a few times, just so we could better understand and stand behind who are we going to go with. And that was an eye opener to see the difference across the country that was happening in the same sample. And for us, a farmer that's doing this for the first time and didn't research, all the testing sites across the country, this is maddening.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's something I think we need to share also, and share with each other. Where are different labs? Where are you getting your samples taken from? Unfortunately, we have to go through a procurement process which states whoever's ever the cheapest, you have to use.
Oh,
and that is not a good practice. It's not a good business model. Mm-hmm. They had to do it because in government, you've had people abuse and exploit the system. And I very much get that. But now we're having to go in and justify and defend why we may not want to use the cheapest. Because we want to maintain the integrity of the program, which means the quality of the sample, standard deviation within the test itself, the analysis. Those are all things that we want to derive. And plus, you can get different information from different labs. They will go beyond just the THC. Some will just do that for free because it's just part of their test. But those are things that we want to recognize, and timing is another issue. So we want to continue to work through this. I know it's going to be a challenge. As we mature in this together, we'll be able to at least narrow down and defend how we want to go forward and who we should be working with as we go forward in the testing and analysis and the sharing of sampling protocol and practices.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons John and I were passionate about this program is it's a great opportunity for us to meet other people in hemp in our region, and to do that, just like you said, exchange information, pass details back and forth, and really hear, what did you put between your rows? How are you doing your irrigation? And I think that's been fascinating. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But that's what as a little kid in Farmers Union, I mean, that's what we got to do. That was what camp was about, and learning all the way through that. Of course, I know North Dakota is more the Farm Bureau side of the country, but it all works pretty much the same. It was the sharing and the cooperative spirit. And it seems like with today's modern technology and everything, it's one farmer on a screen. And that was what we were hoping to get back together, was this community and a community of spirit with people talking to each other and sharing. And then, of course, what happened with this virus came along, and now we're back to screens again.
I know. I have screen fatigue.
Everybody. So, but I think we can say that there will be an end in sight to that, at least, that's not a forever thing, so that we can get back to the coffee clatch and the sitting around the table because the Native Americans had it right. You sit around a fire and the generations pass it on. And for instance, you guys probably have no memory. He doesn't know how old I am. You guys have no memory of when they came and killed all the pigs, like we're talking about burning the hemp fields. But I remember when they came to this farm and took a big caterpillar and dug a trench and killed all the pigs. Because it was a giant virus that went through the pig population here. And that's when we went out of animals, because Dad said, well, we had cows, pigs, and then some chickens. And Dad said, well, if we're not going to have pigs, we're not going to have anything. And that's when this farm became strictly a plant farm, beets and grain at the time. But I remember that day, and it was a terrible day here on the farm. Mom was crying, and it was a serious thing. And so I remember those emotions when I hear about people losing some of their hemp, because it's a big deal. So
Yeah,
terrible time.
back to your point about pandemics and animal agriculture, and agriculture has dealt with these types of situations before. And it's probably where there's been such a growing frustration within uh, our agency and my colleagues across the United States, because we know exactly how to deal with a quarantine situation. You isolate the vulnerable, the sick, and the weak. You don't remove the healthy or change this how you're actually operating. And that has probably been one of the biggest challenges. The other thing, to your point, John, you're absolutely right. We are becoming a more of an insensitive society when we're disconnected. We're not as friendly, and we need that. We need to be together. We need to look each other in the eye. Putting up a screen with 20 different faces, you're disconnected. You do your best to stay engaged, but the amount of mental power capacity it takes to stay engaged on some of these meetings is so challenging unless you're the one running it.
Yep.
Now this
Yep.
this format we're in this venue works because we have interaction and we're working together and talking, but it's difficult otherwise. I want to get back in a room. I want to shake hands, hug people, sit down and let's talk, because that's really how you bring great solutions and resolution to the table.
Mhm.
I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
And I
I am
know I've
too.
got a chance to be with Veronica in different settings, and I want to get back to that. Please.
No,
Let's
yeah,
have it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, for us too, for growers that are, jumping into hemp, they want to come and see us.
Yeah.
It's great. We're a very clean environment. We use some high grade ethanol, of course, and it's just Mac and I. But it's important for people to come and see how we process and how we keep the lab, and look over what we've done in the past, so that they can feel comfortable with that little baby. Because a lot of our growers, John, are still in that they've
Oh.
named the plants because they're
Named and
still in that
numbered.
small grow R&D time. So, but we're lucky, so we get to at least see some farmers.
And that, as we are here, I mean that A1426 was our absolutely best plant, and I have pictures of it. I carry them in my wallet like grandchildren. That was a phenomenal plant. So no, I'm with you there, absolutely 100%.
So I have a weird question away from hemp, just because I'm always fascinated how people get to the place they're at. So, what was your trajectory to become the ag commissioner in North Dakota?
It's one of the strangest ones, I will tell you. I've probably always dabbled in, there's
the moment.
Oh, it is the moment.
So, probably over the last 25 years or so, always worked in the public policy side of things. Didn't care much for politicians. Just never felt like they truly were competent enough to serve the people. But beyond that, have been involved. I'm a medical lab tech. I mean, that's farming. Been on multiple boards at the local, state, and national level. Been blessed. It's like the good Lord put me on this path. And even as, my lovely wife, Annette. So, I got to know some of the people within the Capitol on a very personal level, and actually, 20 years ago said, you really should run for office. You have an extensive background in agriculture, an extensive background in serving people in so many different areas, and you understand the business side of it. I was president of an insurance company, and they said, you can bring something to this. And I kind of took that half-heartedly, but they pushed and prodded me enough. I took a chance. And I even remember my media consultant, after I was nominated at the convention, met with him the next day, and he said, holy cow, name like Goring. He said, your opponent could die tomorrow and he'd still win because no one knows your name ID. And I think that first race I lost by 0.3%.
Oh,
That's how
Ouch.
close it was. Really worked hard. I took it serious. I thought I could actually win. So, no, I love this. And it's all about servitude. If you're going to practice true leadership, you need to look at truth, humility, grace, and mercy. And I believe the good Lord will just put that path out for you, and you can do a good job serving people. It doesn't mean you're not going to have difficult times. It doesn't mean there's challenges. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days. But if you practice that and you work with people and treat people as people, this works. And I do love the job, and I love people. And I'm looking forward to continuing to serve the people of North Dakota. You never know what comes up, but yeah, as of right now, I will want to continue to do that. So it is a weird trajectory.
What would you tell a ninth grader? They've watched the news, and especially what we've gone through this last 6 weeks or so, or 6 months, however you want to call it. What would you tell a ninth grader that has some savvy, maybe not one that's got their eyes in the buttons all the time, to encourage them to, the words that you talked about, servitude, and that there's a payback for being involved in this? What would be your words to a young person?
Limit digital information, whether you're talking about social media, the news, limit the amount that you're exposed to. Talk radio, I mean, I know it's out there and I'm on talk radio. The problem is there's so many opinions anymore. Opinions, not facts. You tend to get lost. You lose yourself in that. In other words, if you look at the facts, you study around that, you're going to be so much better off. I would also say be a student of history, sociology, science. I mean, we hear all this stuff now, we're being bombarded. Yep, believe in the science. Well, again, there are opinions out there and there's facts. And we really need to be focused on what those things are and be a champion for the truth. And history will tell you so much. And I know I listen to my own kids, I've listened to others just say, I never liked history. Well, I guess I was always one that liked it. So if you go back, 1,500 years, you go back 2,000 years, you go back to the birth of this country, if you really think about it, all of our ancestors, when they got here, they came from someplace else. And in some cases, those were places where there was tyranny, there was oppression, and they were willing to come here and die free. They didn't care if the next year they weren't going to be alive. It was better to die here with the liberties and the freedoms that we have and to cherish those, embrace them, and protect them, versus staying someplace else that they were at where they didn't have that. So we need to protect that, and I think we've lost that. And we need to look back at the birth of this country and all the writings from Jefferson and Washington and Lincoln and how telling they were when they talk about a false sense of security and what you're willing to give up and what you'll lose. Let's embrace that. Let's embrace each other. And we need to be more tolerant. We talk about people. We need to be more tolerant. Really, some of the people that are accusing me of being more tolerant are the least tolerant. Because first of all, you're trying to impose your opinion on somebody else. You know what? You can state your facts, state your opinion, and just leave it at that. Stop trying to beat it into somebody or ram it down their throat. Just love people. And I know that sounds like a cliche, and some people are going to, oh, geez, he's wishy-washy. That's all right. I'll live with that. But it's how I serve and represent, and it's how I interact, and that's how I want to be. So
Nice.
That was beautiful. No, I think the love people, that it shouldn't be this hard for people to understand that. Love people. I think it's a great message. And it's what our
And
parents told us in the beginning.
yeah, in spite of their behaviors and their attitudes. I mean, not that there's not consequences for certain behaviors and attitudes, but certainly you have to show a lot of grace and mercy. But we need to start from that vantage point and be willing to listen to people and really understand where they're coming from, be a bit empathetic, but still in a very kind way. Then let's get them to a fact-based system where they understand why this may not be acceptable behavior. And I guess I deal with it all the time as a regulator. It's people believe something that's not true, or you have to deliver bad news to them.
I hear that. Let's look not just in hemp, but North Dakota agriculture.
Yeah.
Obviously positioned right in the middle of the country. We seem to get the rains that we need generally, and can grow and feed so many people. You must have a little inside scoop. What's the future?
When
Look
you
in your crystal ball.
So
we can read some tea leaves here. We can read some tea leaves here, but no, seriously,
my son and I still farm together, so we're
Okay.
feeling the pain like everybody else, and we weren't as blessed this year. We missed the rains, and we were the epicenter of the drought, and it was a tough year for us. But one thing I've learned talking with some of my friends who are brokers and traders, they say, when it's a bull market, it's a bull market. When it's a bear market, it's a bear market. So stop trying to be hopeful in a bear market. You need to look for advantages, when to sell, and maybe when to, establish a put or place a call, or, look at different marketing venues. But right now, I will tell you, just based on the fact that the value of the dollar is going down, that places us in a very competitive position globally. We have been out of that position the last 6-7 years. As the dollar was on the rise, it created a lot more problems for us trying to get rid of stuff. Now that the world has some constriction in production overall, and the value of the dollar is going down, we're all of a sudden coming to the forefront. So I see some good times ahead for a while. As you watch the value of the dollar, it'll tell you something about the value of your commodities, and it'll also tell you about the health of your rural communities. Because agriculture, as you know, never retains those assets really. They always pour it back into the community. Mm-hmm. It's done through improvements. It's done through updates. It's done through, just little aspects in our own personal lives. But yeah, I've had to explain to some reporters before. They said, we don't see any real value that agriculture brings to the state's economy, because when you look at oil, look at the extraction tax and the billions that are taken out of there. And I said, yeah, but agriculture has the highest multiplier effect. And if you look at the average size farm, and I'm going to pick central North Dakota where I'm at, and I'm not an average size farm, we're a little bit smaller than that, but an average size farm in central North Dakota is about 3,600 acres. That's what it takes to raise a family. That farm probably generates a 3,600 acre farm, maybe close to $1 million in revenue, gross revenue. Do you realize that about 10 to 13% is retained? 87 to 90% goes back out in expenses. $900,000 off for every one of those little farms. And an average size farm, it goes back into the community, and they go. And that supports jobs, services, products. And all of a sudden, after about 15 minutes, that reporter got it. They were from another state to begin with, but they got it. They were like, oh my God. And it doesn't matter if it's a small farm, a large farm, they all operate within these same parameters and framework. Farms, agriculture, feed the world, but they feed our economy in very specific and significant ways that you can't just put a finger on and say, well, this is your contribution. The only time you really get to see a contribution from agriculture, it seems to be if you're at the table looking at it. But there's so many other ways, because it can be in the chairs, it can be in the vitamins, the pharmaceuticals, the CBD, it can be in the meat and the protein sources, the cars, the tractors we drive. All those things seem to have more and more agricultural products in them. So it's just it's a wonderful story, but it takes a long time to tell it.
Mm-hmm.
And people's eyes glaze over until they get to a part that is really interesting to them.
I'm glad that you explained it like that, because I forget that people don't see the impact that that farms have on our small towns and how many people they're employing. You know, for us growing up in this region, it's like, well, of course. So
Yeah.
it's good to be reminded. Now, I have a question, because I just cannot help it, but I was so surprised by our neighbors in this election. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about South Dakota and the leap that they made. What are you thinking with our neighbors to the south?
Probably goes back to my earlier statement. I rarely watch the news, so you're gonna have to tell me, what did I miss?
Okay, so
Yeah, you
South
didn't
Dakota,
you didn't explain the whole question. So.
I should have explained the whole question. So South Dakota's passage of both medical and recreational hemp this year was a surprise to me. I wasn't
As in
expecting
marijuana, as in
Yeah, as in
marijuana,
marijuana,
she's
yeah.
asking.
Really?
So I wasn't expecting South Dakota to pass recreational marijuana. I was genuinely
Recreational marijuana they passed?
Yes.
Holy cow.
And that's a
I
long
know they
border.
were
You guys
resisting
share
and-
long
and
border.
Oh, I know they were resisting industrial hemp, and the legislature actually asked me to come down and testify at one of their committees. And I did, just to give them the overview and the framework of our program. And I knew there was a lot of pushback, but I didn't think they would ever.
By 70%. 70%. Oh, this is
69.9.
seeing. Okay, I'm sorry. False news.
I had to look at the
so-
statistics and I couldn't believe it. Sorry.
I
Yeah,
did not know that. Holy cow. So I get the medical marijuana because,
Of course.
but the recreational surprised me.
And the only state to do both at once. I mean, this is just a giant
It's a
jump
huge
all at once.
Holy cow.
And so it's going to be an interesting thing to put into gear. And from, Minnesota shares a border, of course. And so we talk about, well, how is this going to affect us? And you share a longer border. So, because from the growing point of view, you got 400 miles where 100 feet away, and everybody legally can grow 3 plants.
Yeah.
Yes.
The question that we don't know yet is, could I go down there, set up a hoop house and grow 3 plants for Veronica, 3 plants for you, 3 plants for him, and just have, a tag on there. This is Joe Johnson, Marge Johnson, Phil Johnson, or does it have to be 3 plants in my possession?
That's a great question. And that the devil will be in the details when the legislature ultimately has to develop the construct. And I suppose they'll pass it off to the Department of Health to actually implement the rule and oversee it. I'm just thinking it might go down that road, but yeah.
It's going to be big considerations, many considerations.
Many considerations, and such a leap. And not like John said, just a lot of clarity needs to happen in how things were written and passed.
Absolutely. We've been there, done that. I remember when we went through the medical marijuana interim rule, and I remember one of the questions I got was, so how do you want to be a part of this? And I said, because really it comes down to the regulatory side on, are there pesticides involved? And I said, the best thing you can do without being prescriptive is just send me a report, because then I can sit down and work with my attorneys to figure out what the best scenario is and how you move forward. Because if you start to define how you're going to do this, how you're going to do that, you can get a lot of trouble. And if I guard anybody when it comes to certain things that are going on without knowing all the details, you cannot write and be that prescriptive. Mm-hmm. Laws need to create the framework, and it really is the rules and regulations that are going to create that framework that you're going to operate within that should be reasonable, should be common sense, and should be practical. But sometimes that's lost.
Amen.
Amen to that. Wow.
Wow. This has been, we're at 10 minutes to an hour here, you guys. This has slipped by.
Geez.
I know, we've
talk
so
about-
fast.
At the top of the hour.
Talk about worthwhile stuff. We hope that we can make a call and have you on again.
I love it.
sometime.
Yes.
This is great. Time went by. I thought we were like 10 minutes into it.
No.
Jeez, yeah.
I know we could ask you so many more questions, but thank you for taking your time with us today. This has
Yeah.
just been fantastic. And by the way, Jody is lovely to work with from your office. She's lovely.
Some accuse her of being the ultimate gatekeeper, and she is, but she does such a great job just arranging and making sure that I stick and adhere to my life because, oh my God, it is busy around here. So she's got to make sure things are scheduled just right. And she's so pleasant to work with. Everybody she's great at it. So
she's a lovely gatekeeper.
we always give people at the end, that have a product or a hardware to sell or whatever. But since you're from North Dakota, you get a little time here to pitch people on, what makes North Dakota great, or why should they consider North Dakota for an adventure or a venture. So here you go. This is your minute here.
well, I should have gotten something from the tourism department. I will say this.
No, but this is honest and sincere rather than a marketing pitch.
We are a little treasure. A lot of people don't realize whether you go across the state from the Pembina Gorge all the way down to White Butte, which is south of Medora and the Badlands, up to Lake Sakakawea, Fort Union, Fort Lincoln. And I'm talking about a lot of the historical stuff, but there's fishing, hunting, beautiful prairies, and there's such a personality, and it exists every state. You can never take that away from any state. 9 months out of the year, I absolutely adore this gorgeous state. I mean, there's 3 months. It's a little
Harvest time? Is that you don't like the harvest time? Is that?
Well said, John. No, it's wonderful, and the people. I love how honest, forthright, sincere, caring people are, and I never want to lose that. So, as our cities grow, we tend to lose a little bit of that, but I cherish it, and I want to continue to see our rural communities thrive and even grow so that we don't lose that. They are the lifeblood of this country, like they are in any country.
Wow. Take us home, Veronica.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Doug for joining us today. This was fantastic. It was like hemp, a little philosophy.
Hey.
I love it. And I want to thank you, John, for always putting together a great show for us. So
Thank you.
I hope everyone will join us again to talk hemp in the Red River Valley and join us to meet, again, exciting guests. So thanks to everyone today.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful day. God bless.
And you.
Thank you.